Sovereign Platform Group of Companies is one of the fastest growing diversified Indian conglomerates with global footprints. It is setting up offices globally and tying up with companies across the globe for multiple sectors. The company has ventured into real estate and construction, stockbroking and finance, arms and ammunition, mining, airlines and many other sectors.
The Supreme Court today has come down heavily on the matter of electoral bonds once again and has directed the State Bank of India to disclose all details, including alphanumeric codes of the electoral bonds by Thursday. And this decision continues as part of the Supreme Court's recent orders to put out all the details, to ask for all the details of the electoral bonds to be publicized. Let's first, at the top of Easynomics today, listen to what Chief Justice of India, Justice D.Y. Chandrachud, had to say.
In order to fully effectuate the order and to obviate any controversy in the future, we direct that the Chairman and Managing Director of SBI shall file an affidavit on or before 5 p.m. on Wednesday, date Daldo.
Could we have one more day on Thursday?
Stating, yes, that's certainly 5 p.m. on Thursday, indicating that SBI has disclosed all details of the electoral bonds which were in its possession and custody, and that no details have been withheld from disclosure. That SBI is required to make a complete disclosure of all details in its possession. Full stop. This, we clarify, will include this we clarify would comprehend the alphanumeric number of and the serial number, if any, of the bonds which were purchased and redeemed.
So even as the Supreme Court continues to press ahead with complete disclosure on electoral bonds, the bigger questions that we are asking on the show today: what will happen to election funding reform? Beyond electoral bonds, that was an attempt, but the Supreme Court has made it's very clear. Therefore, the big question: will cash make a big return to Indian politics once again? What will companies now do? Will they be encouraged to donate via electoral trusts, as some of them have done in the past? Or will we have to wait for a fresh law to deal with the very significant and important issue of electoral funding and electoral reform? Joining me on the show today, noted experts, observers and commentators in this regard. Hitesh Jain, he is a very senior lawyer who's also written on this topic and a leader of the Bharatiya Janata Party. We also have with us Jagdeep Chokar, the founder member of the ADR that's been fighting this matter at the court, and Tejas Mehta, journalist and political commentator. Hitesh, I start with you and ask you to answer that question which you have also recently written about. What beyond electoral bonds? Because while the public digs into the information and there are headlines that dominate the debate, we need to look ahead and raise this question: what now? Now that electoral bonds have been junked, what is likely to happen now? Hitesh.
Thank you, Siddharth. In my article, I had clearly written that electoral bond was one step in the right direction towards electoral funding. Fine, if you have a problem, then you can try and improve the system and try and find a solution within the system. But after the Supreme Court judgment, 3 C's: confusion, chaos, and cash. Because the Supreme Court judgment does not offer any solution, and the people who are opposing this system also have no solution. For example, the problem with the electoral bond, the issue of transparency, people have to understand. The issue of the transparency was to prevent the donors from getting victimized, because we have 25 states, as many number of states, as many number of governments in different states. And it is possible, and there were genuine concerns and complaints regarding victimization. Now, this was the fact where every party, political party had agreed that this was a one step towards the right direction. And if we had to find the solution, we could have easily found. But what has happened and what has happened post Supreme Court judgment? So you have this system which has been thrown out completely. And today there is no answer as to how you are going to fund the election, what is the funding that is going to happen. And now what will happen if imagine the problem in the electoral bonds also, is there a problem about corporates funding the election? No. Is there a problem about corporate fundings by using check? No. But what was the problem was that, like, if you see post bond, there are these people who have just gone berserk in the market claiming that every person who has given the bond, it's a quid pro quo. That was precisely the fear that you don't want to create a system where you want to support genuinely and then you be accused of misdemeanors or other aspects where people want to put 2+2. If people are supporting, they should be able to support freely. And if election is about transparency, the election is also about supporting free without any undue pressures. Now what will happen? There is no alternative. There is no answer. So people would like to find out the ways without getting themselves accused and see how they want to support the political funding.
Absolutely. Several of those points that you raise are very, very significant. And viewers, let me once again emphasize, we are not focusing on the content of the bonds here for a particular reason, because that will play out in the manner it will. But the larger question, and Jagdeep Chaukar, I'm coming to you on this, because while you have as a public activist raised this point, and many of the points that you have raised have been heard and answered by the highest court of the land, the bigger question is, what after this? Will cash come back? Will cash once again become king in our electoral process? Because we have now a huge general election that is just a few weeks away, and there are no bonds. So the obvious answer will be that we'll go back to cash being peddled left, right, center, sir.
That is a very interesting observation. I agree with you. But let me share with you, before we go what next, we also need to understand what happened before it. I actually had written a piece saying that there was life before electoral bonds and there will be life after electoral bonds. If you look at any of you who is sort of old enough to remember, from 1950, 51 to 2016, anywhere in the world, if you talked about how was Indian democracy doing, people said it is doing great. Nobody said Indian democracy is a victim of cash and there is huge problem. I am not saying even for a minute that there was no problem. If there had been no problem, we would not have been working on electoral funding transparency since 1999. So the situation was not very good, it was bad. But my submission is that after electoral bonds came in 2017, the situation became worse. And it added an extra layer of opacity on top of what the existing system was. And despite of all,
sir,
let me complete.
Yeah, sure, please go ahead.
Despite all that is being said about the money being white, we have seen in the last 4 or 5 days, money is white. But where is that white money coming from? What sources and how it is being given? So merely the money being white, in the hearing in the court where I happened to be present, when the Attorney General, or I should say learned Attorney General, said that public have no right to know where political parties get their money from, one of the judges in the court explained to the learned Attorney General that a person may have a huge amount of unaccounted money outside the country, or he can take it outside the country and deposit it in a bank in a tax haven where the banking rules are not so strict. And from that tax haven, from a bank, it goes to another bank in country 2. Then it goes to another bank in country 3. It goes to another bank in country 4. And from country 4, from a very reputable international bank, it comes into State Bank of India. So that money has come from the bank, but is the money white? No, hang on. Victimization. It has just been said that the purpose of confidentiality was to prevent victimization. Now, victimization is done by whom? It is done by one political party to the supporters of the other party. And it is done by all
Mr.
parties.
Chokar, I am not trying to
You-
interrupt you or prevent you from making a point.
You are.
Only,
You are,
no,
my friend,
sir,
you are.
Sir, just allow me this submission. You've
It
been
is
on
your
my
choice.
shows in the
You are
past.
the anchor. I'll keep quiet.
No, sir. Let me tell you, the show is called Easynomics. What we want to do is to break up issues. Because क्या हो जाता है? If
That
it
is
becomes a
precisely
dangal,
that is
one second,
precisely
one
what I was
second.
trying to do. If you
Sir,
don't want me to do that, you are welcome.
No, not at all, sir. I am just submitting to you that I try and not make this dangal that we see on other channels. Why I was interrupting you, number one, was to just help our audience understand that while you are raising concerns which have now been judged upon by the Supreme Court, so I am not going back to litigating that matter. No,
Nor am I going back, but I was putting things in perspective that what is happening now will depend on what was happening before. And what was happening before was bad, but this 7 years hiatus made it worse.
Okay.
And we are
Fair
seeing
point.
the impact.
Let's take that point. Since you say the
And
7-year
I
hiatus
also
has made it worse,
and I also want to
take
give
your
you a
point.
solution.
I
I
will
also
go
want
to
to
my
no.
I'll go
It
to my
was
other
said.
panelists to take
Just-
that
just
point
a-
up. Yes,
Just
go
a
ahead.
minute. I want to give a solution, which my learned friend said there is no solution.
Okay.
Solutions have been given. Solutions have been written about in the media if somebody cares to read. And the solution is very simple. When demonetization was done, everybody was told that we are now moving towards a cashless digital economy. And we were told that payments to rickshawalas and to vegetable vendors should also be done through Paytm or a similar app. Now, the whole country can go cashless, but political parties cannot go cashless. The solution is that all donations to political parties, all income to political parties should come digitally, and all expenditure by political parties should happen digitally. I mean, there can be no simpler solution. But the overriding concern is that the name of the donor should remain confidential. This is the key.
Okay, so the name of the donor should remain confidential. This is key what you're saying. Jagdeep Chokar, viewers, is saying that if the rest of the country is digital and the government of the day has pressed digitalization in our finance, then funding and expenditure should be digital. Hitesh, I noticed you wanted to respond quickly because my friend Tejas has been waiting. So quick intervention and then to Tejas.
One, Mr. Chokar made a statement as if before 2016 everything was hunky-dory, everything was fine. I don't know which world is he living. People were talking about cash, kind, alcohol being used as a part of the election. So, and we all know from where this kind of money, and these are the same people who were talking about how CEC was impartial earlier or CEC, and they quote the example of Mr. Session and about Mr. Session catching hordes of cash and money during the election drive. So therefore, to say that there was no cash and everything was proper, I think that is a statement, I mean a colossal misstatement. Second point, as regards the digital payment is concerned, there is no problem, there is no bar now also. But the concern is today, even if you make the payment by digitally, this is the same lobby who's going to accuse every corporate who will make it digitally that listen, you have an interest, therefore you are supporting digitally. Listen, you have this thing, you are supporting. So what the corporates will have to think that to fund is a crime because after funding, I have to face 50 and 100 petitions which will be filed by same lobbies like ADRs in the name of transparency and will harass them and victimize them. So the issue, the core issue over here is to remove the black money from the political funding system, and as regards the source of money, whether it is bond or whether it is check or whether it is digital. So when the ED and income tax is taking action against the black money, these are the same people who complain, oh, the ED and the income tax are the high-handed and they are going behind the source of the money and trying to find out the taint. So these are the same money who will do the name calling for ED and ITI. These are the same people who have what is digital solution. It is a farcical solution. The solution is even after making digitally, can these people assure that there will be no witch hunting against the corporates and all? The issue is not about digital or check. The fact is why people are giving if the people can give by way of cash, They can give by way of check also. But to prevent the victimization, therefore they use the route of, therefore they wanted some sort of a protection. As far as the KYC and all the other systems were there, we could have found the solution within the system.
Right.
So
Right.
according to me, this digital is not a
Right.
solution.
Hitesh, hold on.
Without offering any.
Hitesh, hold on. Let's get in Tejas and then I'll go back to Jagdeep Chokar. Tejas, come in on this because the larger question that I'm trying to say here, cash wasn't good, bonds the Supreme Court has held are not good. So what are the common citizens of this country left with? Are we therefore now going back to an era कि किसका पैसा है और कहां जा रहा है ये किसी को नहीं पता है?
Yes, I do agree. We are almost back to square one, and I don't know how the system 7 years ago was better than this, or this is worse than that. Because let's say even today, some amount of the corporate donations to political parties is coming in black. It will be, of course, but at least a major portion of it is coming in white. So that's a one step ahead. We have gone from what we were initially. There could be several other issues. Yes, first of all, the SBI being the bank, which is collecting the money, there are issues with that because there's only partial anonymity for those who are donating because the government will get to know even if you say they will not get to know. I mean, ultimately, that man's job depends on the government. So there was partial anonymity. Yes, opposition will not get to know. So there are issues. I am not saying that the electoral bond scheme was perfect. They could have taken many corrections. I felt, but the nub of the issue really here is Siddharth, that what the Supreme Court wants is total transparency. What the donors want is total anonymity because they fear political vendetta by whichever party may be in power. So when both of them want something at the either end of the spectrum, it's not really possible to have a solution probably within the electoral bond scheme because either you go fully transparent, where everybody is still like in the US or wherever abroad. So many countries, the systems are far more open in that sense, and you lobby, you do whatever you want, and then of course you have to have a system where you can keep checks and balances as to there is that money doesn't become an instrument to really force policies and all of that. Who is benefiting, who is not?
Right.
All that will be looked into. But as far as this was concerned, I think we were a step ahead. What can really happen now? I think either you go fully transparent because we cannot go back to what was at this point of time.
No, but Tejas, when you talk about full transparency, I must also inform our viewers, and some of them know and have commented on this discourse in the past. There are many companies that have set up electoral trusts. In fact, one of the largest electoral trusts in India comprises some of the best known corporate names, and they all disclose in their balance sheet. So it wasn't as if there was complete opacity. There are concerns around some aspects of the electoral bond scheme. But before I go to get Mr. Chokar back into the debate, viewers, I want to play out for you a very small comment by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman just the other day at the India Today conclave in response to a question by me on whether shell companies and those companies that are not making profits should have been allowed to fund elections. And the reason I asked that question is because you have a law called the CSR law at 2% funding but applicable only to profit-making companies. So let's quickly take a listen into what the Finance Minister had to say, and then I go back to Jagdeep Chokar.
Loss-making firms and shell companies should be barred from political funding. And the second question that is related to this is that why is there so much doubt about corporate funding? Don't companies and businesses, if you have a right to vote, we also should be having a sort of right to finance elections of our choice?
Siddharth, you're right. Why not? If corporates can fund, they can fund. But of course, under which scheme of things, which law, all that will have to be worked out. Nobody is saying parties cannot be funded.
But loss-making and shell companies.
Yes, there are issues on those sort of things, which of course will have to be looked into. You can't afford to have shell companies or, loss-making companies. That's a very valid point.
Jagdeep Chokar, I tried to ask a couple of these points with regard to loss-making companies or companies, shell companies using the electoral bond route. I personally believe that that shouldn't be allowed. There should be clear-cut safeguards. But take this point forward. Is corporate funding of our elections a crime? And don't you feel that some of the companies whose details have now come out are already in the process of being publicly vilified? In fact, noted corporate citizens have been forced to come out and clarify that, we just did this on our own. Isn't that one of the indirect fallouts that has come out?
Number one, to answer your question. Now, before that, I want to clarify two things. It was said that I said the earlier pre-2017 system was perfect and very good. I did not say that. I said it was bad, and if it were good, we would not be working to improve it since 1999. I said that without any doubt. If that has not been understood properly, I can't help it. Secondly, Tejas had a very interesting observation. He said Supreme Court wants complete transparency. Donors want complete opacity. So we have to decide what should prevail or in effect. But he put these two in the same sentence. I am not sure whether the Supreme Court's view is to be doubted and put against the donor's view. This is a little thing we have to worry about. To answer your question straight away, corporate funding of political activity is not a crime at all. Absolutely not a crime. It has happened even before independence. I am aware of that. But the corporate funding under the cloak of secrecy raises doubts about the veracity of decisions that governments and parties make. Therefore, what the finance minister was saying in response to your question is very valid. Loss-making companies should not be allowed. But the data which has come out, which was being referred to as they will do this and they will do that, as if they are the villains of the country, I take exception to that. But that is what the data has actually shown, that loss-making companies have made huge donations. And the finance minister very rightly says this has to be corrected. But this is the same finance minister whose government made this scheme and removed the 7.5% limit on corporate, 7.5% of the average profits of the last 3 years. That limit was removed as a part of the electoral bond scheme. This was a positive action, act of commission, not act of omission, by the government, of which the finance minister says, yes, it should be looked into. Why wasn't it not removed at the very beginning or after 3 years or 4 years of that? It is very easy to say that this was a step forward, but the amount of things which, according to one of the panelists, is vilification. One of the things that the data has shown, that the apprehensions which were expressed about the electoral bond scheme have all proved to be correct. It has choked the funding to opposition parties. It has got dubious money into politics. And therefore, if we want to continue to do this, and you have very rightly said, there were electoral trusts even before this, and people were using electoral trusts. But that selective, limited anonymity that the electoral trust provided was not enough. We need complete anonymity so that anybody and everybody, including subsidiaries of foreign companies, those subsidiaries doing no business in the country, getting foreign money from their parent and giving it to political parties, all that is perfectly all right. I would be very happy if you guys want to do that. Please do that. But then don't say it is to remove black money. That is not true by the data.
Mr. Chokar, there should not be a single rupee from foreign sources to enter our electoral process. The United States of America, and Tejas and Hitesh, please come in on this, have very, very strict laws on foreign funding, and that's like a big ticket issue in the United States. The US,
India,
I don't know whether it can be compared with India in terms of its electoral funding system. But Tejas, before I go to Hitesh to respond to some of the issues raised by Jagdeep, come in here and offer a sense of a solution, because we'll keep going round and round back to the past, but where do we move from here to ensure that our elections become clean? Because nobody on this panel would want our elections to be founded on black money.
No, you are referring to a corporate leader saying that, they had to come out and issue statements. In fact, Kiran Mazumdar Shaw, I just want to read out and get the sentiment of what she's saying. She said, would like to clarify that Biocon did not make any political donation to JDS or any other party for elections. At a personal level, I purchased electoral bonds, which I donated to JDS and several parties. My donations were nominal on the principle of funding election campaigns with white money. Now, you have this you had a system, so I honestly think that this was a good start. Actually, perhaps the government will have to think of another way of like how you're going to get CAA, make a few changes and get back, because the anonymity part seems important. The white money seems important to all to many honest and genuine political funders. The one possible solution, of course, many have been talking about, is having a national election fund where people can once again donate anonymously. The issue really is, how does it reach, whom is it really meant for, and how can you make that connection but not again let it be known public. There are several issues with what the election current scheme really had. Were issues that the government had some knowledge of, it could have possibly have had some knowledge of who was paying to whom, and they would know, especially opposition parties, which companies are giving.
But
also,
Tejas, hold on, I just want to interrupt. Now that the list is out, and regardless of what happens to funding, it could also be argued that the central government, with all powerful agencies like the ED and CBI, now knows that company X and Y have funded political opponents. So if there is this belief and allegation that certain parties and individuals are being targeted, that can now hypothetically increase, Tejas.
Absolutely. And I mean, how is this? How now the new system is not, we don't even know what the new system
there is. No system. In fact, Hitesh, now purely from your legal hat, and I have seen you get into other complicated matters, and Mr. Choker keeps talking about anonymity as well. I am just asking this question again. Cash will be king because there is no alternative, and I can't understand for the life of me. Explain this to me legally from whatever I managed to understand of the Supreme Court's reasoning. If there was certain elements which were unconstitutional, but what happens to me as a layman, it seems the baby has been thrown out with the bathwater, and we are just 2.5 months from the result of the next general election.
I will also answer one question. Now, what the Supreme Court has said today, that we have set a cutoff date of 12th April 2019. Now, let me take the Supreme Court's own argument of transparency. So that means before 12th April 2019, they are happy without transparency. And after 12th April 2019, it wants a transparency. So somewhere I think the Supreme Court has also realized the judgment has several unintended consequences. It has created confusion. It will infuse cash in the system. And the Supreme Court, I could have understood if the Supreme Court have taken a step ahead and also come with some solution or some observation as to what it felt. Because since it has decided to wade into a policy issue, it cannot act in a silo or in a vacuum. The Supreme Court should have offered some sort of a solution. Otherwise,
did the government fail to argue its case well? Hitesh, did the government fail to argue its case well?
I don't think so. Government have argued, but it is the Supreme Court who has failed to understand the seriousness. They just went by the issue of transparency. They felt, I mean, rightly or wrongly, they felt that the issue of transparency is important without understanding that the core issue of the election, more than the transparency, is use of black money in the political funding system or use of cash in the political funding, which it has miserably failed to address. I'm making a very responsible statement with reverence to all the learned judges on the bench, but they have failed to address the issue of black money and cash. And then when these are the same judges, like when the matters are coming, then same lobby who was present, who was opposing the electoral bond, the same lobby then wants to take action. When ED and income tax are acting, then they are saying, they are making allegation, why are you being so strict? Why are you taking action against black money? Why are you going against the source of funding and all? These are the same lobby. So look at the dichotomy, the confusion, and without offering any solution on the eve of election, it is a major chaos. The fact is, make no mistake, it is all easy to say that digital is a solution or a corporate is a solution. I will tell you something, a matter which I was doing. A cash was found at the son of the in Amravati during one election, and then they said at that time it was a Congress NCP government, and one of the police authorities were alleging that son of former president, this cash was moving towards that. And in that matter, what was the explanation that was offered by the Congress party? You know, the cash of 1 crore they offered that the party workers collected in 10 rupees, 20 rupees, 100 rupees, and this 1 crore rupee was collected. Now, there are such kind of fanciful explanations were given in that case. So I'm sure Tejas has been in Maharashtra. He's aware about that famous case that happened.
Well,
So,
that
there is a complete chaos over here that has happened, and people will find such ingenious ways. In digital also, what will happen? You create 10 rupee, 20 rupee, 50 rupee, 100 rupee, and then create. How are you going to, now suppose tomorrow, digitally someone is spending 20
yeah, in
rupees.
any case, there is a 2,000 rupees limit. Tejas, quickly, Tejas, a quick comment and then Mr. Chokar. Tejas, please.
No, I was just backing up what what Hitesh was saying, because even now TMC and I think JDU both are saying that some donations came magically at their doorstep. They were given there, and we don't know who the donors are. Now this is not about BJP or Congress. This is about all political parties, because ultimately everybody needs the money. Everybody wants to try and keep it as clean as possible. I do hope that they agree on that, at least on a principle, larger principle. But I mean, at this point, I think the mistake really is we're looking for the perfect solution. There is no perfect solution. I don't think that is, unless you go totally transparent and the political vendetta vanishes, or our industrialists become brave enough to say, okay, chalo dekhenge.
No, Tejas, before Mr. Chokar closes the debate, I just want to, I've spent 2.5 decades covering policy, political economy, the markets and whatnot, and some of our resource sensitive sectors which have government involvement. I can already create hypothetical scenarios here of, let's say, a gaming company and certain policy actions in the future, or XYZ. I am hesitating, viewer, from creating these scenarios, because I feel we should not add to the rumor mongering and this hype that is being created, that so much quid pro quo and all of that has happened. Many of the companies that have been revealed, viewers, have dutifully, through their electoral trust, to the last rupee, continuously declared that which party they have been funding. There was no hue and cry then. So Mr. Chokar, leave that aside. These are all emotional matters, but please offer a sense of what now. I will keep asking you that, because we have reached this stage where the Supreme Court, the highest authority in the land in such matters, has thrown out this scheme. What next now, sir?
As I said, answer is, however much transparency may be hated, but transparency is the only answer. We have to learn to be transparent as a society. We cannot be that we want to protect some people under one excuse or the other. As far as the vendetta is concerned, I would again submit, which I said earlier, that vendetta is done by one political party to the supporters of another political party. The vendetta is done purely by political parties. Every political party would like to do this if they can help it. And the solution to stopping vendetta is for political parties to be disciplined. Political parties have this impression that they are above the law of the land because the law is made through their representatives. There was a discussion about foreign companies. Let me mention in 2 minutes or less than that. There was a case in the Delhi High Court where BJP and Congress both were found guilty of violating the FCRA, the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. And the Delhi High Court said that action should be taken against these companies within 6 months. The government of the day amended the FCRA with retrospective effect, a law which had been repealed in 2010 was amended with effect from 1976. And both BJP and Congress were involved. And you may say they, ADR was the petitioner in that case. We don't hold a brief for any political party. We got both. And I have no problem in naming because it is a High Court judgment. BJP and Congress were held guilty of violating the FCRA. The FCRA was amended with retrospective effect. Both were involved in that. So I'm saying all political parties are guilty. They have to learn to be responsible. And therefore, what we need is a law regulating the functioning of political parties. We can keep doing this, BJP versus Congress. I don't belong to either and I oppose both. So we need, if we want to do something, we need to regulate the functioning of political parties, put them under a scheme. We had suggested to political parties, you make a law. We will not say anything. But once you make a law, we will make sure that you follow that law. So there has to be some.
Mr. Chokar, these are points that will perhaps continue to be debated, and since we have completely overshot time, I will quickly add that one more question that perhaps may have some of the answers that we are debating because of the nature of our electoral democracy and the repeated multi-layer election process that we undergo every year. Perhaps viewers think of it, and I am not endorsing or offering any solution on my behalf, but maybe lesser number of elections, one India, one election, may also be a solution along with whatever else has been said by the experts on the show.
I beg to disagree there also.
Tejas Mehta, thank you very much for your time with us today. I am no wiser as to what will happen next, but I hope you as the viewer have perhaps gotten to understand some of the fine print of this very complex and crucial issue for our country. I'll be back with more. Until then, goodbye.
Darwin Platform Group of Companies is one of the fastest growing diversified Indian conglomerates with global footprints. It is setting up offices globally and tying up with companies across the globe from multiple sectors. The company has ventured into real estate and construction, stockbroking and finance, arms and ammunition, mining, airlines and many other sectors.